are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films and shows for where they align with the greatest story and the greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Jam.
And I'm David. Hey, Jam, a quick question. What do dyslexic zombies eat?
I don't know. What?
Brian's.
Oh, well, that's
seemed appropriate.
It is appropriate considering we are covering The Last of Us Season 2, and we are hitting Episode 1, Future Days. And so we'll be doing weekly minisode episodes for each episode of The Last of Us.
Yeah, after our previous episode on Season 1, which, to be completely honest, is one of my favorite episodes we've ever recorded. Like, it was fantastic. And I'm not saying that just, to pat myself on the back. That show just unfolded so much in terms of the discussion. It was rich. And so if you haven't, one, watched Season 1, this is not the kind of show you can jump in out of order. Two, you should go listen. Same with the podcast. Go listen to our Season 1 episode, because we're going to harken back to that some. But as opposed to our normal fare, we're not going to have a spoiler-free section for any of these minisodes. Your spoiler alert is going to come right out the gate. And we're also not going to have an ad break. So I'll just very briefly mention that if you like what you hear, go ahead and share with your friends, follow on social media, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast. And if you want to help us out, consider doing a rate and review. And you can always consider supporting us on Patreon. We have exclusive content and opportunities to interact in there. So with all that stuff out of the way, Jam, you want to give us a little summary of our first episode here?
Yeah, that's it. You've been warned. So here comes the spoilers. Episode 1, Future Days. So this takes place 5 years after the events in Salt Lake City, and it actually beautifully picks up right where Season 1 left off, which I am so glad they did that. And so we have Ellie. She's 19 years old now, and she makes a discovery while on patrol with her best friend, Dina. And what we have is back in Jackson Hole, Joel seeks to help to mend his relationship with Ellie. That is Rocky. But what they do that is beautiful is they don't really tell you why. But you, as the viewer, know, if you've seen Season 1 and you're watching this first episode here, you know why that relationship is probably rocky. So, man, what do you think? We have our ratings, right? Let's do popcorn rating. What did you think? Was it stale? Was it fresh? Buttered and salted?
I Season 1 was buttered and salted just out the gate, whole way through. And I say this knowing this is going to change throughout the season, but I think this was fresh. I think this is in the good category, and it's going to get better. This episode has a slower pace, whereas the episode that kicks off Season 1 is obviously just world altering, right? The outbreak, everything happening there. It's a lot of world building, but it's different in this case. We're establishing the choices, the relationships that make this such a compelling and rich show. But Season 1 thrusts us into suspense right away, whereas Season 2 is kind of like, I like to say that it's setting up the chess pieces. There's the introduction of the stalker, which was amazing, introduction of several new characters, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But I think for now it is essentially good, and it's going to be great, and I can tell already. But for now, I'm keeping my hopes a little bit lower. But I was curious, Jam, because you've played you played Last of Us 1, the game, and a little bit of Last of Us 2. And I was just curious because in watching this show, I've been paying more and more attention to the sets and the kind of backdrop, the setting, and I've been really amazed with the level of detail. And I can't help but think that they're drawing directly from sets in the show. Is that, or excuse me, in the game? Is that correct?
Oh yeah. 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 Had you played the games? I don't remember if you played. Okay.
I've not, but I've watched some of the cutscenes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, even just when you get into Jackson and you get into the entirety of the town that they're in, from, getting to see the different locations and everything. I mean, they are drawing from the game, which is great to see when you have a show that's drawing so much from the source material. I haven't watched it, but like the Halo series, I have friends that are fans, and they're telling me like the Halo series is awful. They're not drawing from the source material. Like it's almost just using the IP just to make a quick buck kind of thing. With The Last of Us, even with season 1, it was very much inspired by the source material, and it was cool to see. I know you had rated it fresh. My rating was similar. It was fresh, but I'll tell you, I almost rated it buttered and salted, because the way that The Last of Us 2 starts out, it's a little bit more fast paced than the episode, but having known what happens in the very beginning of the game and then seeing it not happen in this episode, I was delightfully surprised. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time watching and worried about what was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do to build that up. But I mean, the game and the film, to make it a show, they have to take some liberties. And I know you had mentioned the pacing. One of the things that was so compelling about the game is you go from cutscene to then almost nothing happening. And it's really a game you have to listen and be aware of your surroundings, because there could be zombies all over the clickers and everything all over the place, or you could randomly be attacked by like people. And so you really have to be mindful of what you're doing. But what was so compelling about the game was, while there was not cutscenes, Joel and Ellie are talking to one another. And you're really starting to understand more of their relationship, even from like little things like her talking about wanting to see dinosaurs, to her collecting game cards and stuff like that, and Joel talking about those kinds of things with her. It built the relationship. And this episode actually felt like they were just coming out of the game. It was really slow paced, but it was the like slow paced character building. They're having side conversations kind of thing. It's kind of the charm of The Walking Dead, if you ever watched that. Some of the charm of The Walking Dead was those moments where they're not being attacked, but they're having some like humanity that is actually instilled in their character. And that's what I enjoyed about this episode, at least. Yeah, the pacing was slow, but I think they're going to get going off to a good start.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a fine thing to do with an episode like this. And, as a quick aside, for our listeners, I really want to strongly recommend that you listen to the podcast, HBO's The Last of Us companion podcast. It's the showrunners or the producers, Greg Mazin, I think, and then Neil Druckmann. I hope I got those names right. Druckmann, I think, was one of the creators of the game. And then he's a co-producer on the show. And then Neil Mazin, I hope is the right name, is the producer of the show. And I don't normally listen to shows like that. It's kind of what we do. I'm just not as interested in the behind the scenes stuff. They don't really do a lot of that. They are really insightful into what the characters are doing, the themes. I mean, it's almost like a secular popcorn theology is what they're doing. And so, it's almost like too easy to do these episodes because they're laying the groundwork for us. And so, they unpack a lot in terms of the themes in the show. And as a quick aside, that's why season 1 is one of my favorite seasons of TV ever. I would say that Last of Us so far is probably top 3 TV shows I've ever seen, not counting comedies. It's probably the 3rd best dramatic show I've ever watched. And that's saying something. And so I've been extremely eager for this series to bring back season 2. And the pacing, it is what it is, right? It's how you got to set up the new season of a show. But one thing that they describe in that podcast is the what do they call them? Emotional action sequences. That's what they're describing them as. I'm like, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
When you have characters introduced like Gail, and Gail, the therapist, is giving it right back to Joel, and that standoff that they had, I mean, it's almost like a gunfight a little bit to a degree. I mean, and so dramatically and emotionally, it's not really slow, but there's no huge revelations in characters, no big massive twists, and not much in the way of action, although there is one really fantastic action scene we'll talk about. But
now, Gail,
it's excellent.
Gail wasn't a character in the game.
Oh, really?
So she's a character that was made for the TV show. And I was actually reading something that was saying she was inspired by another character. Now, I can't for the life of me think of the character's name now that I'm talking about it. But Gail is not an actual character in the game. At least not what I've played so far with The Last of Us 2. So yeah, that was a surprise to me, because in the game, you have at least as far as I am, Joel's not seeking therapy and talking to anyone. So that was interesting to watch and be like, that's a difference from the game. And I'm currently trying to play through it. I know we were texting about doing the show for The Last of Us, and I'm trying to play through it when my boys are in bed, but I was actually just playing it before jumping on here, trying to get onto it. So,
I from what I've heard though, her late husband Eugene was a character in the game. And one quick thing, while we're not spoiling, or while we're spoiling the season episodes that we're watching, those who have played the game ahead of us better not spoil anything that hasn't been revealed yet. Talking to you, James. So, and I know that's tempting. There's even a little bit that sort of slips through in the end of the episode things on HBO. Like they revealed something in that I don't think they meant to. In terms of the identity tied to Abby, and I mentioned it there, and I was like, oh, I didn't want to know yet, but it's okay. I'm sure we'll find out soon.
Well, I have to know, because you said this is top 3. Season 1 is top 3. What are your top 1 and 2? I have to know now.
Well, anyone who's listened before knows top 1 is Breaking Bad. By a long, long, long shot. Then behind that, I would have to say Dexter. I was a big Dexter fan.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, Dexter was excellent. And we've never done an episode on it, so maybe we should do some sort of Dexter-related episode.
New Blood was great.
Series. I love New Blood.
Let's do it.
We should do it. Yeah. And with the new Dexter prequel series, which I have no interest in coming out, maybe we could review it in sort of anticipation of that. But
now wait, the prequel series was New Blood. So you're talking about
that's the sequel. Yeah.
Wait,
New Blood.
New Blood.
I was thinking of Last Blood.
Yeah.
That's what I haven't seen New Blood.
Oh, you should watch it. We should do.
These all sound like Rambo movies. First Blood, New Blood, Last Blood.
We should do it, man. It was good. It was good. I watched the prequel. It was awesome.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, man. All right, theology rating. We got to get back to it.
Back on track here. So, for those who don't know, we have our rating system for popcorn. That's the entertainment side, if you will. And then we've got the theology ratings. Diluted, which is not that much in the way of themes. Carbonated, which is some themes to discuss. And then my cup runneth over, which is that it's just bursting with themes for discussion and so much to go with. So I guess I'll go first on this real quick. I thought it was carbonated, but like a little on the diluted side of that. I would still call it carbonated because, again, season 1, flawless, beautifully explores this concept of a father's love for his child, both good and bad. And then they contrasted that with the vignettes of all the people that they interact with. But so far, and again, it's first episode, can't judge it too much. Season 2 hasn't just quite gotten there yet. I'm sure that they will. So that's why I say carbonated for now, but something tells me it's going to be spilling out the top of the cup before too long.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. What do you think?
I was carbonated as well. I saw you put diluted up there. I was like, what?
Diluted / carbonated. Yeah.
It's like going flat.
Yeah. Not unlike the drink I'm drinking now.
That's the worst. See, I thought there was a lot of good tension between Ellie and Joel, and I thought it was weaved so well throughout the episode. And the starting point being the lie that Joel tells to Ellie, like that was awesome. I loved that they just picked up right there. Because I think that really helped with the tension between Ellie and Joel. And while you're talking about the father-daughter relationship there, I think that there are way more depths to that relationship and realities that are going to be explored. And I think this starts exploring the complicated mess that is a father-daughter relationship or just a father-child relationship. So, I mean, as the child gets older, if you think about it, they come into their own person, and sometimes that results in pushing away their parent. And I'm excited to see how they explore that in the show. I know, without spoiling it for you, I know how they explore that in the game. And I mean, that is a really, really cool area to, it makes me think of the prodigal son, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to see a little bit of that dynamic there. And I think it's cool that they've set it up. Ellie's making her own decisions, but what's beautiful about the father-daughter relationship is the fact that despite what Ellie does, Joel's going to support her. And we've already seen that with Joel, even in little ways. There was a little way in which Joel's like trying to support Ellie by taking the guitar and wanting to replace the strings. And he doesn't really say anything. He just takes it. He's just going to go do it. But then you see it in a larger way of supporting her despite her pushing him away and those kinds of things, with him punching out the man at the party. And so I think there are a lot of really good themes that we're already seeing within the series, which is why I called it carbonated. So
that was such a great scene too, because when he takes the guy out, like a lesser show would have shown him watching all of this from the sidelines and then shown him like bursting forth. You don't even know he's at this event. Like you don't even know he's in the room. And then all of a sudden he just bursts from the side of the scene, like boom, takes him out. And I'm like, okay, all right. Like,
oh yeah,
he's defending his kid. And then, like I said, the dramatic action sequence of her being like, I don't need your freaking help.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh man, like the tension is there. And I love it. It's such a dad move when he's like, I'm going to take this, I'm going to get it fixed. You'll get it tomorrow. And then gets out of there.
Yep.
Because as much as these two characters deeply love each other, there is so much subtext. They're so, it's so under the surface, the way that they express that love. So that's fantastic. So there's a lot to discuss. And I think what we're going to do real quick is just kind of outline the way that we're planning to approach these episodes, which is that with any story, any film that has, or TV show that has themes, from a Christian worldview, those themes are things that we can either receive, we can accept them outright and say, yes, that fits with the Christian worldview and with what Scripture indicates, or we could reject it and say, yeah, that's an unbiblical view or concept, or this show praises something that we shouldn't praise. But most things, I would argue, at least with season 1, fall into the redeemed category, where we would say that, yes, this is very close to what Scripture indicates. We just need to kind of tweak it or redeem that theme. And so we're not going to go through kind of like, checking all of the boxes as we go, but that's sort of the framework that we're using as we approach these episodes. And so, I'm excited to get into the deeper themes of Last of Us season 2, episode by episode. I'm really jazzed about this.
Yeah, man. So theme wise, what was a big theme that stood out to you?
The big one for me in this episode, and I think this is going to be the theme for the whole series, or season 2 at least, is the choices of consequences, right? And so in season 1, it's exploring the love for these characters and how far a father is willing to go to protect his daughter. And in this season, we're dealing with the fallout of that. And so it's setting up those consequences for Joel's choice, both to save Ellie and to just slaughter the Fireflies. And I'm reminded of Proverbs 14:12, which says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." And I can't help but think that this is going to be the theme verse for the season. I guess we'll see. Leading way to death seems about right based on the show so far. But that's sort of my theme verse there, because ultimately Joel can't bring himself to deal overtly with the outcome of what he's done with his own actions. Gale confronts him about it in this incredible standoff scene. And Pedro Pascal is such a, such a craftsman, because what he really pulls off is so much in the subtle expressions of his face.
Yeah.
And they're like hard to even put into words. I don't know how he does this, but in that discussion with Gale, she's asking, what did you do? Did you hurt her? And he says, no, I didn't hurt her. And then you can see him going, through regret, and then kind of transforming and saying, I saved her. And resolved, as if to say, I would do it again. I regret it, but I would do it again. Oh, like so beautifully acted. And then of course we see the setup for his choices on the other front, which is, with Abby, right? Abby's crew is lurking in the distance, kind of slithering towards Jackson in the same way that the cordyceps tendrils have come in through that pipe, which I totally saw coming, by the way. As soon as I saw roots, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Anyway.
See, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting the cortisol coming through. I haven't seen that in the game yet, so I don't know if it happens in the game or not. But yeah, man, the theme of choices having consequences. I think you're right. Just from what I know of the game, it is going to be a huge theme, and how fitting Proverbs 14:12 is, especially when you get into like just zombies in general. That's how The Walking Dead was. Someone does something, and it's a ripple effect for everyone else. So yeah, I'm right there with you, man.
For sure. And a couple other verses that I was reminded of as well, that Galatians 6, verses 7 through 8. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. And so we see this concept of sowing and reaping, that it's not karma. It's not like you get back what you put into the universe or whatever. It's not really how it works. But we do see this concept that when you invest and when you sow into your flesh, then you're going to get corruption from that. But when you invest and sow into the Spirit, you're going to reap eternal life. And in this case, this all goes back to the, very long discussion that's happened since the game came out about whether Joel did the right thing by saving Ellie and by, and we discussed this a lot in our season 1 episode. So go ahead and check back to that if you want to hear our thoughts on that. But I mean, I think regardless, what we're seeing is that, is also reminiscent of Hosea 8 verse 7. He says, for, speaking of the people of Israel, he says that they sow the wind and they reap the whirlwind. Right. And so the things we do are not done in isolation. They obviously affect other people. And this show is going to be dealing with all of those collisions and all of those dominoes falling. And I'm jazzed for each Sunday evening episode drop. So, and we're getting these out as quick as we can, by the way. I wish we could get them out sooner, but we're getting them released as quick as possible. So, anyway, any thoughts on that one, Jam?
I think it goes right in line. Your thought process here in this theme goes right in line with what I was picking up, which is regret. And you're talking about the idea of essentially living in wisdom. The proverb that you quote talks about there's a way that seems right in a man's eyes, but its end is death. And ultimately, we know that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And so, there's a way that is actually right to live, and that is most beneficial for everyone around. And that is the way of the Lord, walking in his steps, rules, and his statutes. And of course, we can't do that on our own, which is why then we have consequences as a result, because we cling to our flesh and we sow the wind and reap the whirlwind, as Hosea says. And this idea of regret, I think, is such a big one within this episode in particular, because you have Joel and you have Ellie in their silent moments, both seeming to regret the fact that there is a great chasm between father and daughter. And I was reminded, Pastor John Piper rightly points out, a life without regret is a life built on a mirage. And just thinking of regret in general, I often don't know that Christians know how to handle regret. I think of, Joel, and even at the end of the episode, Ellie, they're both dealing with the regret and this idea of, well, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that. And I think oftentimes it happens for Christians too. I know many times, or even running into someone I knew in high school before I was a Christian, it'd be like, man, I wish I would have treated that person differently, or, and so I think there are often times where Christians struggle with regret. We start thinking back, and I was reminded of the thief on the cross, who no doubt had regrets as he hung beside the Lord of glory. And yet what is peculiar is the assurance that Christ gives. Despite the regret that man had, Christ assures him by saying, today you will be with me in paradise. And so really watching this episode and then thinking through the biblical theme, it's like there is hope and there is actually purpose in regret. I think it was regret and shame and guilt and remorse over the man's sin, the thief on the cross, that then led him to a profession of faith. And I think ultimately regret is something that points us to the grace and the glory of God in saving sinners, right? We look back on certain things in our lives and say, man, I wish I would have done that differently. But then we can say, but God has done all of this. And so I was reminded of Ephesians 2:12. Remember that you were at one time separated from Christ, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. I remember first becoming a Christian and like being so wrecked with my sin that I thought, like, I've got a checklist of people I just got to go to and apologize to. And, but that's a daunting task. Like I had a long list of sins. And it's easy to get crushed in that guilt. And so then I was reminded of Philippians chapter 3. Brothers, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press on towards the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. The idea here is the Apostle Paul is saying, hey, you were at one point this. You were alienated, you were separated, but we need to forget about that. Forget in the sense of all the wrongs we have done. And we need to forget them because we need to press forward to the end goal, which is to be face to face with Christ one day. And I don't know that our characters will get over their regret apart from Christ. I think we're going to see that. That's going to be a big deal for these characters moving forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, yeah, we don't, without revealing too much of what you already know, we can see that regret is so deep, right? That, and we discussed a little bit, what does Ellie mean at the end of season 1 when she says, okay, she says, swear to me that everything you said was true. He says, I swear. He lies right to her face. Mm-hmm. Somewhat convincingly, but but she sees through it. There's an extremely long pause. She ponders, she's doing the math, she's thinking through it, and then she says, okay. And then we see her reaction after that, picks up right then, still with her being young, because they filmed it a little longer. And then Joel's face, you can tell he regrets it instantly. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that she sees through it, whether she is choosing to believe it. I mean, because there's different theories about this, whether no one thinks that she believes him, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's buying that. But the thought is that she is probably doing the math and saying, it's not worth alienating this relationship. I'll play along. Okay. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of us do a lot of times in our social relationships and institutions, is to just, I'm not going to make this right. I'm just going to go along to get along. Okay.
Yep.
That's just the world that we live in, and just kind of accepting that. And I get the temptation to do that, but that's not what we're called to. We're called to redeem and to improve and to follow the Lord's will. And yeah, in terms of that regret that we see, it is heavy between them, but we can see that she's seriously more burned than he is on it. He's just trying to pretend like, oh, I don't know what her deal is with me. And Gail sees right through it as well. I like Gail so far. I know she's not, she's new from the game, but I'm excited to see that. So
yeah, man,
there's much more to discuss.
That's it. But man, we're minisoding. So
right. Yeah. This is getting to not be so many, but we'll try and keep them briefer in the future. But like we said, there's plenty to talk about. And so I hope you keep the discussion going wherever it is that you talk about movies, TV shows, entertainment. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, consider supporting us on Patreon, doing all of that stuff.
Yep. And until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly perspective. And remember, you are not a mindless consumer.
Endure and survive. Thanks for watching this episode of Popcorn Theology. For more content, subscribe on YouTube. Follow and interact on social media to help broaden the conversation. Check out our archive of past episodes at popcorntheology.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, and consider becoming a patron saint by supporting us on Patreon, which lets you interact, influence, and enjoy exclusive bonus content.